This is the running example of the hierarchical inheritance. There is a class employee which has been inherited by the executive class. There is another class officer which is also inheriting the employee class. And there is one more class manager which is inheriting the employee class. So we will understand what is the benefit of the hierarchical inheritance and how these classes can execute the function of the base class. Right? So watch the video up till the end. In this lecture we will learn about hierarchical inheritance. Now what is hierarchical inheritance? See, when a class is inherited by two or more classes, we call it hierarchical inheritance. For example, let us assume that there is a class student which is being inherited by a class science, and this student class is also being inherited by another class arts. Now, assuming that the student class has a function disp student, this science class also has a function disp science. So what will be the benefit? That the object of the science class can invoke not only this function disp science but also this disp student function, right? Similarly, the object of the arts class can access its own function as well as the function of the base class. But there won't be any interaction between these two classes because they are not inheriting each other. They are inheriting one common base class. That's it. Okay. Let us understand the concept through a program. See, this is a student class which has a parameterized constructor and a function called disp student. There is another class science which is inheriting the student class, and this science class has a parameterized constructor and a function called disp science. There is another class arts which is inheriting the student class. It also has a parameterized constructor and a function called disp arts, right? Now we will understand the program from here, from the main function. You are making an object of science class by name science stud, and while creating the object, you are passing these four arguments 101, bin2, 70 and 80, right? On looking at these arguments, Python compiler will realize that there has to be a parameterized constructor in the science class. So control will jump over here. This is a parameterized constructor. These values 101, bin2, 70 and 80 will be assigned to these parameters R. R is for roll number, N is for name, P is for physics marks and M is for maths marks, right? So the values 101, bin2, 70 and 80 has been assigned to these parameters. From here you are invoking the parameterized constructor of the superclass. Science is inheriting the student class. So the superclass of the science class is student. So the parameterized constructor of the student class will be invoked and these values roll number name will be assigned to the parameterized constructor of the student class. So the values in R and N parameter will be assigned to this UNV parameter, and from there these values will be assigned to roll number and name attributes of the object being created, that is science stud. Okay. After executing of the parameterized constructor of the student class, control will come over here and the values in these two parameters P and M will be assigned to the physics and maths attributes. And obviously these physics and maths are the instance attributes of the instance being created, that is science stud. Okay. After executing this parameterized constructor, control will jump here to the main function. Here you are making an object of the arts class by name arts stud and you are passing four arguments. So Python compiler will invoke the parameterized constructor of the arts class. Control will jump over here. These values 101, Chirag, 80 and 90 will be assigned to these parameters R and HP. From here you are invoking the parameterized constructor of the superclass. The superclass of arts class is student. So control will jump to the parameterized constructor of the superclass and the values 101 and Chirag will be assigned to this UNV parameters, and from there these values will be assigned to the role and name attributes of the arts stud object, right? After executing the parameterized constructor of the student class, control will come over here and these two lines will be executed. That is the values 80 and 90 which are assigned to H and P parameters will be assigned to the history and pol science attributes, and these history and pol science are the instance attributes of arts stud object. Okay. After that, on the screen a message will be displayed. Science student information is, and this science function of the science class is invoked. Control will jump to the disp science function. Here you are invoking the disp student function of the superclass. Student is the superclass of science class. Control will jump to the disp student function of the student class. It will display the roll number and name on the screen. After that, the control will jump over here. Will execute these print statement displaying physics and maths marks. After that, the control will jump over here. A text message is displayed on the screen. Arts student information is, and the disp arts function of the arts class is invoked. Control will jump over here. Here you are invoking the disp student function of the student class, right? So we have learned two ways to invoke the function of the superclass. One is by using the super method. Remember that while invoking the function through the super method, you don't have to use the self argument here. But while invoking the function of the base class, by using the base class name, you have to use the self argument. Be careful, right? So control will jump to the disk student function. It will display the roll number and name on the screen. After that, the control will jump over here and it will execute these print statement to display history and Paul science marks. Okay. So what is happening is that the common attribute, that is roll number and name, which are common to the science and arts class, are separated out in a different class, and both the classes are inheriting the student class to avoid repetition of the task. Okay. Now let us run this. Copied and pasting it in the spider ID, running it. See. Roll number name is being displayed to the student function, and physics and mathematics marks are displayed through the disk science function. This roll number and name are displayed through the student function, which has been inherited by the arts class also, and this history and Paul science are displayed through the disk arts function. Okay. Let us do one more program to understand the concept very well. Now instead of two, we are having three classes which are inheriting the base class employee. So we have an employee class which has this function empinfo. There is a class executive which has two functions, exec allowance and exec info. The executive class is inheriting the employee class. So obviously the object of executive class can access these two functions of itself and the empinfo function. Similarly, this officer class is inheriting the employee class and it has two more functions of itself. So the object of officer class can invoke three functions, two of its own and one of empinfo function. Similarly, manager class is also inheriting the employee class, and manager class defines two functions, man allowances and manager info. So the object of manager class can invoke the base class function, that is empinfo function, and these two functions also which has been defined in the manager class. Let us understand through the code. This is the code. Employee class which has a default constructor and a empinfo function. Executive class which is inheriting the employee class, and it has two functions. One calculates the allowances of the executive, that is CCA and HRA, and another function displays the allowances. Officer class also inherits the employee class. It has the default constructor and two functions. One calculates the allowances and another displays the allowances which have been calculated. I assume that the officer has the allowances, medical allowance and convenience allowance. Manager class also inherits the employee class. It has two functions again, man allowances which calculates the allowances of the manager. I assume that the manager has dearness allowance and overtime allowance, and there is a function manager info which displays the computed allowance. So we'll understand the program from the main function. So basically the code name and salary, which is common to the three classes, executive, officer and manager, they are separated into another class called employee, and all the three classes, executive, officer and manager, are inheriting the employee class, so that the object of the three classes which are inheriting the employee class can access the code name and salary. In the main function you get a message, enter details of the executive. You are making the object exec obj of executive class because there are no arguments. So the default constructor of the executive class will be executed. Control will come to the executive class. This is the default constructor of the executive class. Here you are invoking the default constructor of the superclass, and the superclass of executive class is employee. So control will come over here. It will ask the user to enter code name and salary, and the data entered by the user will be assigned to the code name and salary attributes. These code name and salary are the instance attributes of the instance being created, that is of the exec obj. Okay. After that, you are invoking the exec allowances function of the executive class. Control will come to the exec allowances function. It is calculating the allowances of the executive, that is CCA, city compensatory allowance. Basically the cities are of type A, type B and type C, and all cities have their own expenses. So I am assuming that the CCA is 25% of the basic salary. It is any random figure, right? HRA, house rent allowance, is assumed to be 15% of the basic salary, and gross salary is the sum of all the three, right? So the allowances of the executive class are computed, and the control will jump over here in the main function. You will get a message that please enter the details of the officer. You are making an object officer obj of officer class. Obviously because there are no arguments here, the default constructor of the officer class will be executed. Control will come over here. In the default constructor of the officer class, you are invoking the default constructor of the superclass. The superclass of the officer is employee class. So the control will jump here at the default constructor of the employee class. Again, it will ask for the code name and salary, and the values entered by the user will be assigned to the code name and salary attributes. These code name and salary are the attributes of the object being created, that is of the officer obj. After that, you are invoking the off allowances function of the officer class. Control will jump to the off allowances function. Here you are calculating the medical allowance and conveyance allowance for the officer. I am assuming that medical allowance is 30% of the basic salary. Conveyance allowance, that is the petrol allowance, I am assuming it to be 20% of the basic salary, and then I am computing the gross salary. Again I am telling you these are the random figures, right? After that the control will jump to the main function here. You get a message that please enter the details of the manager. You are making the object of the manager class by name manager obj. Being no arguments, the default constructor of the manager class will be executed. Control will come over here. Here you are invoking the default constructor of the superclass. Employee is the superclass of the manager. So control will come over here. Again it will ask to enter the code name and salary. The data entered by the user will be assigned to the code name and salary attributes. These code name and salary are the attributes of the object which has invoked the function, that is of the manager obj object. After that the control will jump to the main function. You are invoking the man allowances function of the manager class. Control will come over here. It is calculating the dearness allowance and the overtime allowance, which is assumed to be 40 and 30% of the basic salary, and then gross salary is computed of the manager class. Control will jump over here in the main function. A text message is displayed that the salary information of the executive is, and then exec info function of the executive class is invoked. Control will come over here. It is invoking the enp info function of the superclass. Obviously the superclass of executive class is employee, so the enp info function is invoked and it will display the code name and salary on the screen. After that the control will come over here. It will display the CCA, house rent allowance and gross salary. After that the control will jump to the main function. You get a message that salary information of the officer is, and the officer info function of the officer class is invoked. Control will jump to the officer info function. Here you are invoking again the enp info function of the superclass. Superclass is employee. The enp function of the superclass, that is employee class, will be invoked. Again it will display the code name and salary on the screen. Control will jump to the officer info function. After that it will display the medical allowance, conveyance allowance and gross salary on the screen. Thereafter the control will jump to the manager function. You get a message on the screen, salary information of manager is, and you are invoking the manager info function of the manager class. Control will come over here. Again you are invoking the enp info function of the superclass, and the superclass of manager is employee, so the enp info function of the employee class will be executed, which will again display the code name and salary of the manager. Thereafter the control will come over here to execute these three print statements which are left out, and these print statements will display the dearness allowance, overtime allowance and the gross salary of the manager. So the common thing, that is code name and salary of all the three classes, that is executive, officer and employee, are separated out in employee class, and all the three classes, executive, officer and manager, are inheriting the employee class. Let us copy it and paste it in Spider ID. I am running it. It is asking me to enter the details of the executive. I am entering the employee code as 101. Name of the executive is Bintu. Basic salary I am assuming it to be 1000. Officer employee code is 102. Name of the officer is Chirag. Salary I am entering delivery as 1000, so that we can see whether the things are computed properly. Easy to compute, right? The employee code of the manager is 103. The name of the manager is Naman, and the salary is again 1000. Now see, this is the information of the executive. Code name and salary are displayed through the enp info function. CCA is 25% of the basic salary, that is 250 rupees, right? HR is 15% of the basic salary, that is 150 rupees, and the total is your 1400. Can you see it? After that the information of officer is displayed. Code name and salary has appeared through the enp info function. Medical allowance. See, medical allowance is 30%, that is 300 rupees. Conveyance allowance is 20%, so 200 rupees. Total is your 1500. Can you see it? This is the information of the manager. Code name and salary is displayed through enp info function. See, this is your dearness allowance, 40% of the basic salary, that is 400. Overtime allowance is 30% of the basic salary, that is 300, and the total is 1700. Can you see it? If you followed this lecture, please subscribe to my channel Share the video with your friends and do write comments. Thanks for watching the video. Have a nice day.